Hello again, and it's time for another project. It's that time of year again for the Halloween theme projects to come out, and I'm cutting this one a little bit fine, so I'm going to get on today just to say we've made one for this time of year. And there's obviously a little ghost there flying off, running off with his little pumpkin that he's probably just stolen from somewhere, no doubt. Now originally I was going to route all this out on some recycled pine, the same wood I've used on my last 3 or 4 projects, but we're going to go for a bit of scroll saw and some plywood. If I was going to route it out, I was originally going to route out all the white sections, leaving the little framework behind, and literally inlay it all with resin. Nice, quick, easy project. Obviously, and then I would cut it all out on a scroll saw. But I've been into the shed, and we found myself some bit of scrap 3.6mm plywood. Now I've cut 2 pieces out. The other little 2 inches left to one side somewhere, because the idea is we're going to cut all this out now. We basically cut out all these sections, just leaving the framework. Once we've got all that black section framework, we will stick it to the backer, glue it all down, and then fill it in with resin. So you have plenty of options to do. When we cut out the surrounding area, we will actually glue these 2 pieces together, the top and bottom board, and cut out the 2 pieces at the same time. That way it will be a nice, perfect fit for that backer. And also, with it being such thin wood at 3, you could stack 4 of these together and cut out all 4 in one go and make 4 of these all at the same time. It's what they call stack cutting. Whereas I'm just going to cut out the 1 piece, glue 4 pieces of wood together, cut out 4 pieces in one go, and there you go. But first we're just going to do the 1 piece. We can leave the backer to one side for now. We're not going to need that until it's time to cut it out. Normally I would use carbon paper, and it's such an easy project. You could quite easily just put your carbon paper underneath there, bit of tape at the corner, draw around that in a matter of minutes, and it will transfer your image. But on this one, we're just going to show you the way most of them do it, and that is to line that with painter's tape, clear paint, sellotape, anything, any clear vinyl that will stick to your wood, and then we're just going to spray some glue on, glue it all down, and then when we'll come in with our what they call pilot holes, obviously we need to cut out the inside of that, so we've got to drill little holes into each one so we can feed the blade through, cut it all out, and then we'll move on to the next section, and so on, so on. So it will be a little bit fragile, but I think we'll get away with this. And the only things we need to cut out are the eyes and the little nose here. I might make that a bit smaller. Seems a bit too big for me, that. And then we will stick them on first before we seal it all nicely with the white resin and orange for the pumpkin itself. So first of all, like I say, we'll line it, spray it, stick that down, pop the glue on, and then we'll come back when it show you what blade I'm going to use today. Okay, so we put our painter's tape down, we sprayed on a bit of that glue, maybe a little bit too much, but it all dries. We've stuck down the template, and you can see there we've drilled our pilot holes. They're quite big today. I just grabbed the first drill I could find, and we just to say got in nicely, and a bit of sandpaper just to sand that back down afterwards. So they're the holes we're going to feed the blades through. Now the actual blades, this is quite a simple project, so you would get away with what they call pin blades. The only downside with those pin blades, obviously have pins at both ends. They're for your more cheaper saws, we'll say, and they just fit on with a clamp. Now if you make your hole slightly bigger, you might just get in with that pin there. If you force yourself in there, you've got room to make bigger, you might just to say get in there, but you are limited with pin blades. So the main blade of choice for other people is pinless, and that is an actual blade there, believe it or not, but there's no pins on it, so you will have no trouble getting inside your holes. And personally for me, the bigger you can make that hole, the easier to transfer your blade in and out. The reason why I say that is because I use what they call spiral blades. The teeth spiral the full length of the blade, and they will cut in any direction. But because of my saw, the old Drapper over in the corner only takes pin blades, I have to use these adapter clamps at top and bottom, and they're just a little bit awkward. So when I've got to basically have that on my saw with the clamp at the bottom, I have to feed it through, then attach this to the top, get an Allen key, tighten it all up with the blade, and then transfer that onto the saw as it is like that. It just makes it a little bit easier the bigger the hole for me, but obviously that's a personal choice. So like I say, Pegas number 2 spiral blade, and the teeth do spiral the full length. These are not for everybody, and there's no reason why I should need it on this project. It's such a small project, you won't really need a spiral blade. They're ideal for bigger ones because there is no turning the wood. You could start there with your blade, and if you just cut that out like so. Whereas with your pin blade and pinless, you would feed it down there, and then you'd have to turn the piece completely, feed it down there, and then turn it, and feed it down there, and keep turning, twisting, twist and turn. There's a lot of movement going on. With a spiral blade, you don't get any of that. The only downside with spirals, once you've cut it all out, we will get a lot of fuzzies on the back. A matter of minutes to sand it all down. Okay, so find the blade that works for you. Pinned, pinless, or spiral blade. They are your 3 main blades that you have to play with. There's different ones. I think it's called reverse tooth, with the teeth come down one side and reverse and come up the other side. They're a little bit different. And like I just remembered there, with your straight blades, which you call these ones here, your teeth, they want to feel smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. And that is the same with spiral blades. They want to feel smooth on the way down and rough on the way up. That way you know your blade's in the wrong way. Should you put your blade in the wrong way, it won't be the end of the world, but you'll just know as you're cutting, all the dust will come to the top and the paper, so you'll soon know when you turn the blade round. Hopefully it will take the sawdust and the paper downwards, so you'll know when your blade's the wrong way round. Okay, we're going to pop in our Pegas number 2 spiral blade. Basically start cutting all these sections out. Right, so we've got our blade set up in the first cut. Remember, with your patterns, ideally you want to work from the middle and work out. That just gives you a bit more wood to hold on to. You might be tempted to come in and cut out the surround first, which just make it a little bit awkward, so always from the middle and work outwards. We've got the blade set in, remember, a Pegas number 2. But like I said previously, any blade will cut this out today, spiral or standard straight blades. We've took up the tension at the back. With mine, it's right at the back of the saw. So we've got our little ping ping sound. That way you know you've got your right tension. So we're ready to cut this out. We'll do one at normal speed, and then we'll speed things up. Because once you get into the flow of things, it's basically just the same thing every time. Okay, let's start cutting this one out. Okay, so we've made it all the way round with that Pegas number 2 spiral blade. No problem there. There's the odd bit that maybe not too perfect. Remember, a bit of sandpaper and we can get that more or less where we want it. I did mention before, the only downside with your spiral blades, when we get really close, just so you see the little fuzzy bits here, we call those, little fuzzies. Matter of seconds they're gone. So you will have a bit more sanding required to tidy the piece up. That is the only downside, I would say, to spiral blades, and they're definitely not for everybody. So find a blade that suits you. If you prefer straight blades, pinned or pinless, by all means use them. Not forgetting, we've cut out the eyes, and I keep saying a nose, I believe it's a mouth. So we've cut out the eyes and mouth. And what you can do when you come to stick these in there, not that it matters where they go, because we've kept the original cutout, when we come to glue it all down, we can pop that back in there. And I've actually numbered the back of these, and we can glue that in, glue these in onto the back. Remember, they're all nicely glued down, and then we can remove the outer section, and they will be somewhere near where we want them. So next stage now is to literally just cut out the backer. We're going to stick it to the same 3.6mm, and for me, I've only done a couple of these in the past. It's what they call stack cutting. We're going to take those two pieces together. You could put a bit of glue in the waste piece, glue it all down, tape it down, and we're literally going to cut them both out at the same time. That way you'll have a perfect fit. If you come off slightly with the top one, you obviously come off slightly with the bottom one, so it won't really matter, will it? So we'll cut all this out, and that will be our top section and the bottom section. On previous projects, if I just spin that over, I've used what they call the washer method, and you imagine we've cut all that section out and we've placed it on here, and you can actually go around with a washer and a pencil and just follow your template all the way around like so. You imagine doing that all the way around there, and that will give you just a slightly bigger backer. If I hold that there without losing it, you see there, look, that line, you would actually cut out that line, and that will give you 3mm all the way round the piece. And I actually do like it like that. But on this one, we are going to do it exactly the same size. So I'll tape this together, we'll cut this out, peel the paper off, bit of sanding down, and then we'll be ready for gluing it all together. Right, so we've cut all the way round the framework, as you can see from that, and we've got the cut we wanted, and that's it now. So we've got a backer board that's basically the same size. So remember, we've still got a bit of sanding to do, we get them fuzzies again. So we'll tidy up on this one. We'll peel our tape off. Go steady now, don't go crazy at this stage of the game and think, oh, that's it, we're looking good. And just start ripping this tape off. You can soon damage these pieces. These are all a little bit fragile until we also get that resin in to sort it out. But you see from there basically what we're going to finish up with. Okay, I'll peel the rest of this tape off, give it a little bit of sanding down, and then we're looking to gluing it all together before we put on the paint or stain, and then we'll get to the resin side of things. Right, there's our bits all nicely sanded down. What I like to do with my projects is literally just to round those off slightly so you don't get that sharp edge on. And we've took all those little fuzzes off the back and everything's nice and smooth. So there's our piece. That will fit on there like so. And remember, because we've cut them out together, we should get a nice perfect fit all the way around. Now on this one, I'm going to glue this down first. On my previous projects, I do have a habit of staining all my bits first or painting them and then sticking them down with resin. Normally use resin to stick these kind of projects anyway that have resin inlay. But on this one, I'm just going to try just your standard wood glue. Make sure you get all your back sections. Basically, I'm going to have to cover all this with the wood glue. Any little gaps, that resin will find it and leak out. On previous projects, I have been known to brush resin over the full piece and then squash that on there like so. Put a weight on it overnight and just leave it. But this wood glue, I'm going to coat the back, put it on there, and we'll have some clamps on it, or same again, put a nice weight on it. And 2 or 3 hours down the line, we'll be ready for putting our stain on or paint. And then we're on to the resin side. So I'll just glue all this down first. Then when we come back, we'll be looking into the either staining this with dark teak stain or basically painting it all black. Okay, so we're ready for gluing down. I literally got that wood glue and we put some out on a bit of scrap wood there. Like, it is quite old, this glue, so it's a bit thick, but I think that'll help us and not run out so much. And I'm going to attempt to put it on with a brush. So for me personally, it's just a simple case of brushing it on the back here, taking our time. Now it doesn't matter if it squeezes out as we're pressing it all together. We can tidy that up with a bit of sandpaper once it's set, or on the inner sections, it doesn't really matter. Remember, the resin is going to cover all that. So I'll just continue with this. If you get it in the right light, you can see where your glue's been. Okay, I'll fill all this in, and then when we come back, we can press it down. And this will just be a waiting time game, should I say. It doesn't take too long to dry this stuff. And then when we come back, we'll be ready for popping the resin in after we've stained it or painted it, obviously. Right, that looks more or less glued. So we're just ready to pop this on to our backer piece here, give it a good pressing down, get the right way for it to go. And like I just said previously, it doesn't matter about any squeegees of glue that comes out, because basically we are going to cover all that inside with resin, and on the outside obviously we can sand this down before we put it all together. So it's a little wiggle around till we find out where we want it. So far so good. I've just gone and got these pegs, and we can just peg these into places where we think, just to help it on the way. And we have plenty of pegs to go at, so we want to make sure it's nicely sealed all the way round. Okay, I'm going to leave this for today. I mean, 3 or 4 hours this will be dry, but I'm going to leave it for today. And when we come back, we can pop our stain or paint on, and then we'll look into the resin side of things. But we will be spraying a bit of varnish on before. You know that was coming. Right, it's the next day, I did away with the peg idea. I'm just trying to show you just a small little clamp should you need it for a project. And basically I just put a flat surface piece of wood on there and put a nice weight on top. And we've left it, and it's like I say, it's the next day, and it looks like everything's sealed up nicely. There's no residue come out, everything's still smooth, and there's nothing on show there that's going to hopefully not interfere with the resin. We'll find out if it's sealed okay once we start pouring that resin in. And then there was something missing from this, and I'm thinking, and then I remembered the eyes and the mouth, so I literally just painted those not 5 minutes ago. They're dry already, as you can see. I tend to stick them to bits of tape like this, put a bit across the top, and then you can paint away to your heart's content. So they're all nicely dry, and for those, just simple painter's black. Any black acrylic would do. I've actually gone out and purchased some acrylic pen markers. I'll try and use them on a future project. So if you remember, our original idea was to pop in as a temporary measure that piece we cut out, and that will allow us to get the two eyes and the mouth somewhere near. So we just peel those off like so. That was the number one, so I know that one goes there like so. This bigger one will obviously be the number two, so I know that one goes there, and obviously there's only one left, which will be his mouth, number three. I did make that slightly smaller. I was hoping to go a little bit smaller still, but that will do. So we can glue those in there after we've painted them, and obviously once they're all nicely glued in, if I can do it without messing it up, we can remove that, and that will leave those eyes and mouth somewhere near where they should be. But before that, we're going to have to just stain this. I'm going to go for, I was going to go for the same black, but you guessed it, I've still got this dark teak wood stain left over, and that dries really quickly. Remember, with your projects, don't forget to do those side walls. When we put the resin in, we will go somewhere near the top on this one, because it is only 3.6mm deep, and when your resin cures, it will go slightly concave. So we're going to try and fill these in as much as we can, and with the pumpkin ones, I'm going to try and overfill just enough to get maybe a slight convex, or a bit more than it should be, so it gives you a bit of a more to it than just being a flat piece. But once it dries, it might dry flat. Well, that's the end of the project. It'll still be a nice little dust in here, still be a nice little project anyways. Okay, so we're just going to put our dark teak on all the side sections, and I might even do the back at the same time. Nothing fancy with this, you can just pop it on and it dries really quickly, but do get those side walls like so. And it looks fairly dark when you first put it on, but as it dries, it will dry lighter. And then remember, we're going to come in with that lovely varnish spray. I think 90% of my projects all end up with a varnish spray. And you'll notice there, I am basically just covering the full piece. Don't try and go around and just cover the top section like so, kind of thing, or don't waste your time just trying to cover those bits. Just do the full piece. It takes a matter of seconds. Not forgetting those side walls there. Want plenty down those bits there. And if you find it goes on the back, by all means to the back at the same time. Okay, we'll cover all this in. When it's nicely dry, we're going to spray a bit of varnish on, just to finish it all, make it nice and shiny. And that varnish will also help seal any of your wood. Personally myself, plywood and pine, it doesn't really need it, but I do like a nice spray on my projects just to finish them off. And then when we come back, the eyes will also be in place as well, and then we'll be on to the resin side. So I'll just continue with this, just filling all this in. When we come back, bit of varnish, bit of resin, and we'll be heading towards the finishing line. Okay, it's about an hour later. That's all nicely dry now, and we've done the back at the same time. You can see it's gone slightly lighter, but when we put our resin on, it'll just darken it down and give it a nice shiny finish. We put our temporary template in there, and I've glued the eyes in with a bit of super glue. They're all nicely in place now, so they're more or less where we're going to need them. They will stand out a lot better once we incorporate that nice white resin and the orange for the pumpkin there. Okay, so the next stage now is just to varnish this, spray varnish. I've just got it on a little lid there, keep away from the dust. I'll do a coat in here and then we'll go outside. And for the varnish itself, just 151, nothing fantastic. But you will see how that just darkens it down nicely. Just spray the inside as well, it's not going to do it any harm. And even those eyes, even though they were nice and shiny, we still put a bit on there like so. And we'll go outside and spray a little on those side walls, just to make it a bit more nice and shiny. And when we come back, we put our bit of resin in and this little project will be finished. Okay, that's enough varnish, and you might just see from that, just enough to give it that little extra bit of shine. And hopefully we've sealed it at the same time, just stop a few more of those little bubbles. You don't need it personally, but I do like to finish with that little bit of a shine. Okay, bit of resin and we won't be far off being finished. For me, for the last few projects, Vista 1 resin, 2-parter, like all your resins. You'll have A, your resin, and B, your hardener. This one's a mix by volume, so whatever amount of A we mix it by volume is the same amount of B on a 1-to-1 mix. So 1 part resin, 1 part hardener. Some of your resins can be 2-part resin, so twice as much A to 1 part B. Some resins can be 3-part, three times as A to 1 part of B. And it's a mix by volume. Mixed volume, it says here, look. Some resins you mix by weight, so you will need digital scales. And what I like to use are these little party cups. They're ideal. We mark them off A and B. You get a pack of 100 for next to nothing. They have gone a bit thinner though, to be honest, so they're a bit crinkly should I say, and they have nice little grooves on the side. So I will count up, let's say 5 grooves of A, your resin, and obviously 5 grooves of B, your hardener. And we'll mix the two together. They do say put A and B into a 3rd cup C. I personally just put B into A, just because it flows a bit quicker, and just mix it in the one. I don't think there's any need for that 3rd container myself, and I've never had any issues. So we will mix that little bit of resin offline. For the 3 colours, we've got the white, which will be just white acrylic, orange for the pumpkin, nice bright orange there, and I think we're going to go for a bit of green just for the stalk of the pumpkin itself. Once we've poured all the resin in, once it's obviously all mixed and nicely poured in, we skim over the top with a lighter, nice and gently. Those bigger ones out there, I have this one here, but keep it moving quite quickly on the bigger ones like this, and that will help all those little bubbles just come to the top and disappear. And then we'll basically put it to one side for a good 24 hours and this little project will be finished. Okay, we'll mix our first little batch of resin off camera, and then we'll add our bit of paint and basically just start filling this one in. Please remember, you want proper gloves on, do not follow me by example. Proper resin mask and plenty of ventilation. It is a chemical afterwards, so you might get it after all, should I say. So you get it on your fingers and you're breathing a lot of it in, you could be asking for trouble. So health and safety at all time. Okay, right, I'll mix a bit up and we'll basically fill this one in. Right, so we've mixed our bit of resin there, as you can see, and I'll put a little bit to one side. We'll hopefully get another colour out of that. Now I like to use my acrylic paints. They give a nice good solid colour. There is dyes, powders and inks, so find whatever suits you. Now they do say 10%. Personally myself, I'll just put in what I think I need to give it a good solid colour. Just get that to drop off there. And that's more than plenty. So we'll give it a nice mix round. You can always put a bit into your project, and if it's not strong enough, just add a bit more paint. These plastic knife, forks and spoons, they're ideal for mixing with. They do have a nice little scoop on the end here, and that just allows you to put it in nice and steady. I'm going to put a bit more in there. You can also get pipettes and syringes, should you prefer to use those. So we'll do the white first, then we'll go on to the orange, and then a bit of green, and this little project will be heading towards the finishing line. Okay, we'll try a little bit in first just to see. Remember, you can pour it straight from the container, but I'll just do a little sample there just to see. Yep, that's going to be plenty enough. Let's start filling this one in. Right, that's the last colour, all nicely gone in. The wood glue definitely worked, we had no leakages and everything's worked out fine. We put a little bit of extra in that orange, just try and fill it up the best we can. Now we need to cover this over for 24 hours. Just bottle caps, these are tops, and that's enough to rest on some kind of cover of some description. And we'll just leave it like that for a good 24 hours. Any flies or dust, they will find it. Okay, we'll come back tomorrow. We'll be back down in the shed and we'll see how we've finished. And remember, as we've gone across with our colours, we come in with the lighter and just skim over the top. And that just helps them little bubbles disappear. Okay, we'll come back tomorrow. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. It's roughly about 15 hours later and everything's nicely set. We've had no issues on that. I'll leave this for another couple of days just to make sure, but we've had no issues. Everything's gone to plan. So we cut it out on 3.6mm plywood for the top section, and then we attached it to the same 3.6mm for the bottom section. We cut the full piece out on with a Pegas number 2 spiral blade. Remember, any blade would have cut this out, be it straight, pinned or whatever you'd like to use. Once we cut it all out, we glued it together. I went for just standard wood glue today and that worked out fine. I'll certainly use that in the future. Normally I've been using resin to stick it all together, but that wood glue worked fantastic. And once we stuck it all down, we went over it quickly with some dark teak for the surround and just painter's touch for the eyes. And then we put in our spray first. I tend to spray this first. One, it gives it a nice shine, plus it helps just seal that wood a little bit, and we had no problem with any little bubbles popping up. Years ago when I first started doing these, I did spray on afterwards and the resin went all dull, so be careful with that. Try and get your spray varnishing first if you want to use it before your project. And then obviously we mix our Vista 1 resin, my favourite at this moment in time, and for me personally, just acrylic paints. Remember, there is dyes out there, powders and inks, but if you want a good solid colour, acrylic paints, you won't go far wrong with that. And I've certainly had no problems in all my projects. And that's it. We are done. And it measures in that, we're going to call this 9 inches by 8 inches across. We might make a little hanger for it, or you could even make a little base for it to sit on a little base like that out of the same material. And that's it. Everything's nicely solid. Everything's worked out fine. So Halloween cute ghost, cut out on 3.6mm plywood with a Pegas number 2 spiral blade and inlaid with resin mixed with acrylic paints. Thank you very much for watching.